Welcome to a Writer's Business, another day recording with me. And when I put this thing together, I always said that I want to be genuine with people and I want to be real with people. And so this is what you have today as I'm speaking to you all here. So one half of the Writer's Business is we're marketing. We're a marketing business. I really hope to promote poets and writers and assist them in achieving a larger audience, assist them in understanding the dynamics of social media and helping them just promote the work. We do that on our website, writersbusiness.com, and on our Instagram at a writer's business. The other half of a writer's business and really this podcast has a lot to do with my personal interests as an owner and um, and my goals with like my thoughts and how I can support and reach people. And I do a lot of that influence through the blog page, right? And so if you were able to go on writersbusiness.com, you see on the blog page there are several topics to where I share tips and advice and things to help out poets and writers. But then there's also some other elements in there like psychology and health, which no, that has nothing to do with the promotion of a poet and writer. One, it's my personal interest. And two, the second thing is that I look at things holistically, right? And so even if you are a poet and a writer, you're an individual person first, someone with thoughts, feelings, fears, goals, someone where you have to take care of yourself totally and completely in order to be that entrepreneur, that professional that you hope to be, right? And so that was kind of my thinking behind that is that I can support people through their business um, on the front end of a writer's business, and then maybe on the back end, just reveal parts of myself and my self interest and help out these artists holistically in a way. And so what I'm bringing today is self compassion. Again, nothing to do with that promotion of poetry and writers, but if we're looking at it holistically, if we're looking at the total picture, if you aren't compassionate towards yourself as an individual, right? If you're more critical of yourself as an individual, especially when you're trying to make it in whatever it is that you're trying to do, it's defeating, right? You're going to meet setbacks. You're going to have periods to where you might question yourself and say, "Is this really what I want to do? Is this really where my life is going? Is this what's important to me?" You're going to get hit in the face by reality at some point, and it's such a great lesson. Doesn't matter where you are in your life, entry level to management to upper level management. If you aren't compassionate towards yourself, you're not truly you're not truly on your side. You're not truly um, using all your resources, your internal resources, to be the best version of yourself. At one point, when you're needing this resilience, self compassion is the one thing that can kind of get you through the door. And so it's important. It's an important concept. And I'm so happy to share this with you all today and so happy to talk about it. You'll find the full blog to this podcast on writersbusiness.com. Just look under the health tab and it'll be titled there, One Practice That Made Me Healthier. So we're talking about self-compassion. What is it and how you can practice it today. Thank you everybody for listening. And if you're joining me here today, I really want you to focus. So I'm going to read and talk about some of the things that really matter to me, right? My interests, but I'm also going to try to involve you and incorporate you. And the first part of that is right here, right? So I want you to take a minute to consider how you treat yourself, like really examine it and explore it. Take a minute to consider how you treat yourself when you have failed to reach a goal or made another mistake. Suppose you tend to criticize and turn judgmental towards yourself. In that case, like many of us, right, can benefit from a little bit more self-compassion. But take a second there and really think about it. Okay, pin that and save it for a little bit later. So far, research has revealed several benefits of self-compassion. In fact, a study at Stanford College really looked at self-criticism versus self-compassion. And what they're saying is self-criticism is actually a self-defeating tendency, right? Society has taught us to be perfect, to achieve more, to win, to work harder, and be the best. And of course, there's nothing wrong with having that little bit of motivation or objectivity in life. However, you have to know where your limits are. You have to know where to stop, or you're always going to suffer being overly critical of yourself. And so instead of really helping yourself push through things and finding a way to improve, right, that criticism actually ends up getting in your way, right? So when our self-worth depends on outcompeting others, we become more insecure, anxious, and self-critical, which actually adds to our misery. When facing criticism, we may become defensive and feel crushed. Competition, then, instead of strengthening our relationships, it tends to lead in jealousy and isolation. So ultimately, self-criticism and competition, excessive competition, can get in the way of our primary goal to be successful, to belong, and to be loved. Where in response to that, in contrast, self-compassion is the source of empowerment, learning, and inner strength. When we fail, we feel insecure or inadequate. Many people fall into the trap of self-criticism, right? Which is actually that self-defeating tendency I was saying earlier. With self-compassion, same thing where it involves facing failure, insecurity, or mistakes, but we address it in a completely different way. Therefore, self-compassion can build greater resilience, strength, and happiness. The beautiful thing about this is that it's learnable, right? You can learn in unhealthy behavior. You can learn to be self-critical of yourself and judgmental. You can also unlearn that and teach yourself how to be compassionate. Consistent self-compassion is linked to better well-being, improved relationships, life satisfaction, and lower levels of anxiety and depression. So if you're looking for spaces to find improvement in your life, I would recommend pausing, taking a step back, and look at how well you treat yourself, the things that you say to yourself daily, and in the times to where you meet adversity. So, what is self compassion? The simple answer is having compassion for yourself is really no different than having compassion for others. You may feel warmth, caring, or the desire to help someone through a difficult time. Now, see, I remember the term self-compassion wasn't something that I grew up with, right? I understood it when you learn about it in school, but it's not like a term. I don't recall my parents say, "Hey, have some compassion for yourself," at all. So it's not something that I really thought about, not until maybe college or right after college, when you step outside of that bubble, you step into reality, and all of a sudden, yeah, you have your supports around you if you're lucky enough, and family and friends, but for the most part, there's no more structure. It's just you, right? For the most part, you just have to go out there and support yourself and stick up for yourself and put yourself in these situations to be successful. And so a lot of the time I was met with right adversity, setbacks. I felt as if I really didn't have any direction in beginning my career as a therapist, really having to sit there and learn that, hold on, I need to have some more compassion for myself. On days to where I am struggling, or to where I have this large agenda of things I want to do, but maybe I'm physically not there mentally, or my body physically not there, then it's okay to be patient with myself to recognize that this is where my body is at right now, and to maybe take a break or to push something until the next day. I had to learn to be kind to myself in those moments, because if I didn't do that, then I was surely going to meet burnout, which I did several times. So I also want to involve you on this again, right? So this is that interaction part I was talking about. Stop for another moment to think about the experience of what compassion feels like when you share it with others. Or if it helps, maybe just write that down. Stop for another moment to think about the experience of what compassion feels like when you share it with others. Think of your closest friends, family members, supports, right? Or people that you support. How present and kind are you with them? How supportive? Typically, when our close friends and family members go through struggles, we react in understanding and thoughtful ways. The challenge, however, is to extend the same attitude and attention to us when we like ourselves the least, right? I know there are times to where, when you're really stuck in negativity, you're really stuck trying to find self-esteem and a reason to go on. It's so easy to get stuck in why me, what's wrong with me, um, why can't I do this or that, and it gets lost in that negative cycle of thought. So self-compassion asks us in those moments where we struggle the most, and maybe we're not feeling as confident in ourselves, to find that same attitude and tension, to find that same loving kindness and support for ourselves, the same way that you would give it to a friend who maybe had just failed or made a mistake somewhere. So self-compassion refers to finding healthy ways of supporting oneself in times of suffering, failure, mistakes, inadequacies, or general life difficulties. The concept asks you to find a non judgmental approach of comfort and care for yourself, much like you would with someone you love and respect. Critical inventory. How self compassionate are you? Here's some common signs that there is a lack of self compassion. Ask yourself how often you compare yourself to others. You judge yourself, critical of yourself, get stuck in feeling inadequacy once you make these comparisons or judgments. Put pressure on yourself more than you need to do, or instead of recognizing what you have accomplished. So looking at the things that you don't have versus the things that you have completed. If you did this inventory, what would you notice? Remember when I said self-compassion is a learned behavior, right? So part of that is noticing when these things are coming up and trying to step away from them and do other behaviors instead of following through with criticism and judgment. Self-compassionate people try to understand themselves. They learn to be patient and accept and give themselves a break when needed. It's this understanding. It's the opposite of perfectionism, where it says, you know what, I'm tired and I need a break. Perfectionism says, so what, get up and do it anyways, right? Self-compassion says, you know what, are you listening to your mental? Are you listening to your emotional and your physical health? It's okay to take a break right now. So much of everything around our focus is on external events and external validation. The key to self compassion and happiness requires learning to look and sit inside yourself, learning to validate your own experience and not look for it from somebody else. The elements of self compassion. At its foundation, learning to have self compassion for yourself or compassion for yourself means that you respect and accept your humanness. I love using the word humanness. I loved it in therapy, and I love it when I am relating topics, because I think for the most part, when we meet adversity, we step aside this concept. You are a human. And what I mean to say is that you're someone who feels stress. You're someone who It's the opposite of perfection, right? You're a unique set of talents and skill sets that can be best used in certain situations and are not in others, right? We all have different skill sets to where there are advantages and disadvantages depending on what situations you find yourself in. And so when I say to accept your humanness, that means that you are a flawed individual. You're a person who is capable of both failures and successes. You're someone unique and unlike any other person that you know and any other person that you will ever meet, which means that even if you meet setbacks, even if you have had failure, even if you've made a mistake, I guarantee you, if you look to your left, your right, out in front of you, behind you, you look through your phone log, you look on your social media, every single person that you lay your eyes on, they have also met those similar situations and in their own way. We measure success by the things that we see from other people, money, status, fame, and all this. And especially with social media, it's like these people are perfect. They don't meet any setbacks because of look at everything that they have. And we try to find fault within ourselves because it's this why don't I don't have that, or why am I not there, or why am I not successful like this person? And that type of thinking again removes us away from this humanness, and it also puts you in that category of you're not good enough or you're not doing enough. If we're constantly looking at the gifts of others, we lose sight of our own talents. Recognizing the human condition to fail, experience losses, and make mistakes can help center you. So when you start to look outside of yourself and to look at all these other things that people have, I want you to turn it right back on yourself and start to look at the skills and traits that you do have and see how you can employ those in situations around you. And if there aren't certain traits that you have, then go out and find a way to see how you can learn them. Here are 4 elements that can help guide you towards the acceptance of that humanness. Self acceptance. Our experiences and other people can diminish and make us believe we have little worth. Everyday life can influence and distort our thinking so much that it becomes impossible to accept who we are. Self acceptance isn't given into past events, it is establishing a caring relationship with yourself that recognizes you are someone with flaws or imperfections. It understands you have a personal identity that is all yours, and it is a learned skill and a non judgmental practice of embracing what sets you apart and what makes you different. I remember when I first started this concept and really turned it into myself. Yeah, I struggled with it, and when I failed the first few exams coming out of college, because you know you have to do stuff with licensing and whatnot. The higher that you get with your careers, you know, it really took a hit on my self worth and my identity, and really made me question like, what am I doing here? But when I took a step back and really wanted to look at this non-judgmental practice, it forced me to take some accountability and some realistic approach to it. And, and if I'm being honest, I realized that okay, I had too much going on my plate at one time when I was trying to study for these licensing exams. I was working a full time job. I was doing entrepreneur interests on the side, trying to start my own side hustle and business. I was also doing contract work, and I was in a relationship, right, with those goals in mind as well. And then I have to sit and make time for a test to study for at the end of the night. I wasn't giving it as much attention as I needed to. And so after looking back, it went from what is wrong with me? Why can't I just get this? And I realized that, hey, I can have some self compassion for myself and be kind and real and state that, hey, I had a lot going on my plate and I just wasn't able to put as much attention and care into it as I needed to. And so I can do it again. The second one is gratitude and mindfulness. Mindfulness is a skill that anyone can do, and it involves learning how to be present in the moment. If you feel disconnected from yourself, Take a moment, a few minutes of the day, and just be present where you are. Since it's a skill, it can be learned through consistency. It involves simply taking a moment and paying attention or noticing what's happening in front of you. By turning our attention to the present, we teach ourselves to break free from being stuck on uncomfortable thoughts, emotions, worries of tomorrow, or information from the past. Likewise, gratitude is an antidote to sadness and depression. So I challenge you, the next time you are stuck comparing yourself or having difficulty believing in yourself, turn to the things you are grateful for. When our minds become flooded with external information, gratitude is an excellent reminder of the successes in our lives. The third key I want to share with you for acceptance is common humanity. Having experienced setbacks in my life, I felt as though no one understood what I was going through. It felt lonely, it felt isolating. When I read on the concept of common humanity, I felt comforted because acknowledging this, again, this teaching, this humanness, right? It helps us understand that the struggles we go through are shared and in some way with many others. Informally, common humanity means that you are not alone. Dr. Kristen Neff of the University of Texas at Austin says, the very definition of being human means that one is mortal, vulnerable, and imperfect. She argues that suffering and personal inadequacies are something we all share. Therefore, when you are struggling and comparing yourself to someone else, know that individual is most likely doing the same. The last key concept of acceptance I want to share with you is living through your values. The concept of values is my absolute favorite. I think it acts like a compass and a roadmap, and what I turn to when I need direction the most. If you have difficulty recognizing your identity, feel lost, or distance from yourself, turn to what you value. Values ask us what's most important to you, who do you want to be, or who do I want to be? How would you like to be perceived? What are your goals and why? Living by your values and moving towards the things that are most important to you creates an opportunity that develops respect and limits judgment for yourself. When you're living life in a way that suits you, there's less need for criticism. Okay, so now that we've discussed self compassion, how about we identify how you can begin development today? Here are a few suggestions for building self compassion. Give yourself praise, acknowledgement, and encouragement. Drop the judgmental attitude, drop the judgmental vocabulary. It is not motivation, guys. If you need an ounce of it, a little bit of it to kind of will yourself if you need to, I understand that it may work. But when we have to talk down on ourselves in order to get somewhere far, we're going backwards. All right, drop it. Give yourself praise, acknowledgement, and encouragement. Imagine the conversation you would have or text message you would send to a friend who had been facing a stressful situation. Think about the words you would share to let them know you are supportive of them. You're not thinking about whether or not they will accept your comments fully and make a complete turnaround. You just want them to feel comforted and know that someone is in their corner. When you find yourself in a similar situation, channel the same attention and attitude you would give a friend. Turn negativity into a set of responses you can give yourself. Use mantras or positive affirmations to guide you through difficulty when you're stuck. The important point of this is if you minimally or have given yourself encouragement, it may not feel authentic. I know it won't sometimes. However, look at the small wins, believe them, and learn to accept them. With small wins, you can give attention to your successes more often, and then that in turn creates the belief and the confidence to face encouragement more often. The second suggestion, reframe negative thoughts. Seriously, I love the concept of reframing. We all experience these thoughts that come across our mind daily, and we have no control over them, right? You can either sit in these negative thoughts and let them run your life, and I say that with all respect and empathy in mind, or you can do the work and try to reframe them as much as possible. When negative thoughts spiral and they cycle in your mind, it's because at this point they are a habit, and they at one point might have been conscious thought that has now become unconscious thinking, which means that in order to change that habit, you have to reprogram. When your mind filters a negative thought, you have to identify it and change it into one that is more practical, believable, honest, and true. Doing that creates a new string of habit, so much so that when it happens, your brain is like, okay, I can do this automatically now, right? Our brains do not want to do the hard work. Our brains want to be efficient, and so you have to rewire it instead of listening to your negative thoughts and by reframing them. Your thoughts hold much power and it can influence your day, your week, month, or year. Suppose you have succumbed to negativity or self-defeating thoughts. In that case, it will never feel like you can overcome that barrier or struggle. Reframing negative thoughts or viewing your thoughts from another perspective can be challenging because it's like anything else you experience. You have to learn the process. The thoughts are not you, nor do they define you. They're just information. Learning to see the thoughts as what they are assists in distancing from yourself. The last two suggestions I want to share is to confront your inner critic and practice eliminating the word should from your vocabulary. When exploring the concept of the inner critic, I realized that my inner voice had been with me at every point in my life, both when I succeeded and failed. However, it was the loudest when I had failed and showed up again in similar situations to remind me to not step out of my comfort zone. Your inner critic's mission is to protect you from things outside your comfort zone. While this is safe and secure in the short term, it doesn't help you grow into the person you can be. Creating a separate dialogue apart from your inner critic allows you to distance yourself from the trap of negativity. With should words, should doesn't exist in the present, it exists in the past and future, and it endorses the idea you should be doing or saying things differently than you usually would. It signals that you're not doing enough and that there's more to do. And so when I look at it, it's as if it implies, well, there's more, and it can trigger perfectionism, shame, high expectations, stress, and insecurities. If we're honest, it doesn't influence motivation. Instead, it creates perfectionism, and the thought suggests that what I'm doing is wrong or not doing enough. When we tell ourselves that we should be doing something, be something, or feel something, we do the opposite of accepting and judging ourselves. There's no right way to do something or right way to be. Loosening our standards or rules for ourselves can help us be more compassionate. All right, so we're closing it up today, and I want to leave you with this. Self-compassion is an emotional attitude towards yourself, a practice, and a learned skill. Belief doesn't originate from a thought, it comes with time and consistency. Self-compassion feels natural when you commit to reminding yourself of your skills, talents, successes, small wins, and uniqueness daily. It is a matter of being kind to yourself, supportive, patient, understanding, and caring. Likewise, it's an attitude that becomes a belief in recognizing you are enough because you are. If this is an area that you've wanted to focus on or a new skill that you need, give it a shot today. What do you have to lose? Thanks everybody for hanging with me today. I hope that you can take something away from this lesson. If anything, try to be self-compassionate today. And remember that it's a practice and consistency, practice and consistent over time. Let me know what you think about the concept and tag @A Writer's Business on Instagram.